Imagine stepping into a real-life fairy tale, only to watch it unravel into a whirlwind of love, power, and heartbreak. Hope Cooke, the American socialite who became the queen of a tiny Himalayan kingdom, captured the world's imagination in the 1960s. Her story had all the makings of a Hollywood epic, an opulent wedding, cultural clashes, and political intrigue. But beneath the glamour of royalty lay a life filled with unimaginable challenges. In today's video, we'll uncover the extraordinary journey of Hope Cooke, from her privileged beginnings in San Francisco to becoming Queen Consort of Sikkim and finally to her reinvention as a historian and writer. Let's dive into the captivating rise and fall of the woman who lived a modern-day fairy tale with an unexpected twist. When the socialite Hope Cooke married the Crown Prince of Sikkim, many believed her story would mirror that of Grace Kelly, a glamorous American entering a royal life. Yet, beneath the glittering facade, dark rumors soon began to swirl about her true motivations for the marriage. Hope Cooke occupies a unique position in American history. Born into privilege, she became a worldwide tabloid sensation in the 1960s after marrying a Sikkimese prince, earning a royal title, a rarity for an American citizen. Although her wedding was initially a joyful and grand occasion, it marked the beginning of a tumultuous journey, filled with unforeseen tragedies and complexities that even the trappings of royal life couldn't conceal. Hope Cooke was born on June 24, 1940, in San Francisco, into a life of privilege. Her father, John J. Cooke, an Irish-American flight instructor, had met her mother, Hope Noyes, through their shared connection to aviation. Noyes, an amateur pilot herself, came from an affluent background, being the daughter of a wealthy shipping magnate. Hope was named after her mother, but her early years were shadowed by loss and abandonment. Her father unexpectedly left the family shortly after she was born, leaving young Hope and her mother behind. While this departure was painful, the tragedy that befell her mother was far more devastating. When Hope was just 2 years old, her mother, Hope Noyes, tragically died in a solo plane crash. According to accounts, Noyes had taken off with a nearly empty gas tank, a puzzling decision that later led Cooke to suspect her mother's death was intentional. In her autobiography, Cooke reflected on the possibility that her mother might have taken her own life, a heartbreaking conclusion she reached as an adult. To add to the pain, the details surrounding her mother's final moments remained shrouded in mystery. No one in the family would confirm whether her mother's body was recovered or, if it was, where it might have been laid to rest. Following her mother's death, Hope and her older half-sister were sent to New York City to live under the care of their maternal grandparents. However, this guardianship brought little comfort or familial warmth. Despite their wealth, the grandparents seemed to lack any instinct for nurturing. Instead of sharing a home, they housed the two girls in a separate apartment across the hall, effectively isolating them. Though surrounded by material comforts, the Cooke sisters endured a childhood marked by emotional neglect and instability. Despite their wealth, Hope Cooke's grandparents displayed little interest in raising their granddaughters, providing minimal emotional support or guidance. Instead of welcoming the girls into their own home, they relegated them to a separate apartment across the hall, creating a physical and emotional distance that underscored their detachment. Though Cooke's childhood was surrounded by privilege, it was far from comfortable or nurturing. Her grandparents made scant effort to fulfill parental duties, leaving Hope and her sister to be cared for by a string of governesses. However, these governesses, instead of offering stability, introduced new layers of hardship. In her autobiography, Cooke recounts disturbing incidents of abuse at the hands of her caretakers. Raised in an Episcopalian household, her grandparents often hired deeply religious governesses, some of whom wielded their piety as a justification for cruelty. One particularly zealous nanny subjected young Hope to harsh physical punishments, including beatings with a coat hanger. Whether the grandparents were aware of this abuse remains unclear, but their indifference to the girl's well-being suggests they may not have cared. Relief from this oppressive environment came only through a tragic turn of events. When Hope was 12, her grandfather passed away, and 3 years later, her grandmother followed. Still a minor, Cooke found herself in the custody of her aunt and uncle. This new guardianship offered a dramatic change of pace. Her uncle's diplomatic career meant that the couple lived a jet-setting lifestyle, exposing Cooke to a world of sophistication and adventure. Their lifestyle introduced her to new cultures and broadened her horizons in ways she had never experienced before. Eventually, Hope convinced her aunt and uncle to allow her to complete her high school education in Tehran, Iran. This decision marked a pivotal moment in her life, offering a refreshing and vibrant change of scenery. During her time in Tehran, Cooke attended lavish social gatherings hosted by influential Iranian politicians and royalty. Through these events, she met prominent figures from various cultural and political backgrounds, sparking a lifelong fascination with global customs and traditions. It was here, amidst the rich tapestry of Iranian culture, that her fascination with Asia began to take root. After completing high school in Iran, Cooke enrolled at Sarah Lawrence College, eager to deepen her understanding of the cultures she had encountered during her travels. She was particularly inspired by a brief trip to India and was determined to study Asian history. Unfortunately, the college's curriculum did not allow freshmen to specialize in that subject, forcing her to take European history instead. Still, Cooke's privileged background and strong determination enabled her to navigate these restrictions. Leveraging her social standing, she persuaded her professors to let her focus her assignments and papers on India, effectively tailoring her education to suit her interests. Over the course of her college years, Cooke took several summer trips to India, each deepening her connection to the country. She fell in love with its landscapes, traditions, and people, seizing any opportunity to return. These experiences not only enriched her academic pursuits, but also began to shape the path that would lead her to a life-changing encounter with the Crown Prince of Sikkim. In 1959, Hope Cooke embarked on what would become a life-altering journey to Darjeeling, India. The official reason for her trip was rather mundane, a typing course. However, this ostensibly simple objective belied the profound impact the journey would have on her life. Cooke, accustomed to a life of luxury even during her travels, opted to stay at the Windermere Hotel, a grand colonial-era establishment that exuded charm and opulence. It was within the walls of this historic building that her fate would change forever. During her stay, Cooke encountered Palden Thondup Namgyal, the Crown Prince of Sikkim, a small Himalayan kingdom that was then an independent state. Recently widowed, the prince was staying at the same hotel, and the two struck up an immediate and deep connection. Their meeting was as serendipitous as it was transformative, and the bond they developed would alter the course of both their lives. In her autobiography, Cooke later reflected on this pivotal moment, revealing the truth about the nature of their connection and what drew them together. At the time of their meeting, Cooke was a young idealistic student deeply intrigued by Indian spirituality and eager to find a sense of purpose and belonging. Her travels had left her enchanted by the richness of Asian culture, and she was searching for a way to root herself more firmly in the region. According to Cooke, the Crown Prince, on the other hand, had more pragmatic reasons for his interest in her. As a widower with 3 young children, he was looking for someone who could step into the role of a mother and help raise his family. Despite these seemingly practical motives, the pair's connection ran deeper than just mutual convenience. Their shared histories of isolation and trauma formed a poignant bond between them. Cooke, who had grown up without the steady presence of her parents, saw a kindred spirit in the prince, whose own childhood had been marked by severe hardship. At the age of 6, he was forced to abandon his studies after contracting malaria, an illness that left lasting effects on his health and childhood. Separated from other children for much of his youth, the prince endured a lonely and challenging upbringing. In her journal, Cooke once mused that his childhood may have been even more sorrowful than her own, a striking acknowledgement given the tragedies she had faced. This shared understanding of loss and resilience created an emotional connection that transcended their vastly different backgrounds. The Crown Prince saw in Cooke a young woman of intelligence and strength, while she found in him a figure who embodied both the romance of royalty and a vulnerability that mirrored her own inner struggles. Their meeting in Darjeeling set the stage for what would become a highly unconventional and deeply complicated royal romance. The connection between Hope Cooke and the Crown Prince of Sikkim deepened rapidly, culminating in a surprising turn of events. On only their second meeting, the Crown Prince proposed marriage. To many, such a swift engagement might seem impulsive, but Cooke later explained her decision with heartfelt simplicity. She had fallen in love with what she described as his sad, sad eyes. Her enthusiastic acceptance set in motion plans for a royal wedding, although it would be another 2 years before they could officially tie the knot. Cultural beliefs soon played a decisive role in delaying the wedding. Initially, the couple planned to marry in 1962, but astrological warnings from multiple Sikkimese and Indian astrologers indicated that the year was an inauspicious time for such an important union. In Sikkimese culture, superstitions and astrological predictions held significant weight, so the couple postponed their plans out of respect for tradition. Finally, on March 20th, 1963, their wedding took place in a serene Buddhist monastery. The ceremony was steeped in traditional customs, with the bride and groom wearing ceremonial scarves draped around their necks, symbolizing unity and blessings. With her marriage, Hope Cooke achieved a distinction almost unheard of for an American. She became Queen Consort of Sikkim, a title previously held by no other U.S.-born woman except Grace Kelly, who had famously married the Prince of Monaco in 1956. After the wedding, Cooke relocated to Sikkim, leaving behind the bustling streets of New York for the remote Himalayan kingdom. The transition was striking. Sikkim, though rich in natural beauty, was modest and underdeveloped compared to her cosmopolitan upbringing. Cooke found herself surrounded by a landscape of breathtaking contrasts: emerald green hills, snow-capped mountains, and fields filled with vibrant wild orchids. Initially, she appeared content with her new life, embracing the romantic notion of making a home in the palace. Yet her initial excitement seemed more tied to the idyllic idea of domestic life than to her relationship with her husband. In her writings, she expressed a strong desire to start a family, describing her dream of filling their home with children to create a sense of stability and warmth she had lacked in her own turbulent childhood. Her wish for a family began to materialize almost immediately. Along with her marriage to the Crown Prince, Cooke became stepmother to his 3 children from his previous marriage, 2 sons and a daughter. She embraced this role wholeheartedly, developing a deep affection for the children, which may have stemmed from her own yearning to rewrite the narrative of her early life. In time, she and the Crown Prince had 2 more children together, further expanding the royal household. However, as their family grew, the demands and strains of life in the palace also intensified. Cooke's adjustment to life in Sikkim was far from seamless. As an outsider, she was thrust into the public eye and faced intense scrutiny. Many in the Sikkimese population viewed her with suspicion, fearing she might exploit her new position to influence local politics for her own gain. Some even saw her as an American plant, strategically placed in the region during a politically sensitive era. Aware of this distrust, Cooke felt compelled to prove her loyalty to her new homeland. Determined to earn the trust of the people, she undertook significant steps to align herself with the culture and demonstrate her commitment to her role as Queen Consort. Despite the skepticism she faced, Hope Cooke sought to contribute meaningfully to Sikkimese society, utilizing her background and experiences to advocate for progress. She was particularly interested in education and cultural preservation, encouraging initiatives aimed at improving access to schooling in rural areas and fostering greater awareness of Sikkim's rich heritage. Drawing from her Western education and exposure to global perspectives, Cooke worked to bridge traditional Sikkimese values with modern practices. She also promoted Sikkim's unique identity on the international stage, helping to bring attention to the small Himalayan kingdom through her position and connections. As a prominent figure with ties to both the East and the West, Cooke often served as a cultural ambassador, introducing Sikkimese traditions to foreign audiences while fostering tourism and interest in the region. However, her efforts were not without challenges. While some viewed her contributions positively, others, particularly within the political elite, feared that her influence could overshadow traditional leadership or alter the delicate cultural balance. This tension underscored the broader struggles she faced in navigating her dual role as both an outsider and a representative of the monarchy. Hope Cooke made a bold and controversial move to demonstrate her commitment to her new life and identity in Sikkim. In a gesture that shocked many, she renounced her U.S. citizenship, symbolizing her dedication to her role as Queen Consort and to the Sikkimese people. This decision, however, was met with sharp criticism from multiple fronts. In the United States, certain politicians voiced their disapproval, and Cooke's actions were met with disdain from the elite social circles she had once been a part of. Her renunciation led to her removal from the prestigious Social Register, an exclusive publication that listed members of America's most prominent and well-connected families. This exclusion served as a symbolic rejection from the world she had left behind. Yet, while some saw her decision as a betrayal, others found it fascinating. The global media seized on Cooke's story, turning her into an international sensation. Her marriage to the Crown Prince and the accompanying fairy tale narrative were widely reported, attracting attention from renowned publications. National Geographic featured an in-depth report on her wedding, and the New Yorker profiled the royal couple during one of their trips to the United States. Despite her dramatic shift in status and surroundings, Cooke's image captivated audiences around the world. Interestingly, while her husband practiced Buddhism, Cooke herself chose not to convert, a decision that puzzled many. This choice was especially curious given her early fascination with Buddhism, which she had explored from a young age. Even Henry Kissinger, then U.S. Secretary of State, remarked during a meeting that Cooke appeared more Buddhist than the population. Her deep understanding of Buddhist philosophy added to her image as a fitting consort to a Buddhist monarch. Still, her refusal to formally convert added a layer of intrigue to her personal identity within her adopted culture. Cooke's life in Sikkim took another significant turn 2 years after her marriage. On April 4, 1965, her husband was crowned as the Chogyal, or King, of Sikkim, officially making her Queen Consort. During his reign, the Chogyal implemented relatively progressive policies that improved literacy rates and raised the country's per capita income, putting Sikkim ahead of neighboring nations, including India, in several metrics of development. Cooke's influence as a modern and educated consort likely played a role in shaping this progressive image. However, Sikkim faced increasing pressure from India, and the threat of annexation loomed heavily over the kingdom. While the public image of their marriage and reign seemed idyllic, the reality behind closed doors was much darker. The Chogyal's personal struggles, heavy drinking, explosive temper, and a penchant for womanizing took a toll on their relationship. Cooke described in her autobiography an early glimpse of his volatile side. On one occasion, shortly after their honeymoon, the Chogyal became enraged when he discovered she had not cleaned the refrigerator. In a fit of anger, he threw her treasured record player, a symbol of her connection to her Western roots, out of the palace window. The marriage was further strained by infidelity. Cooke revealed that throughout their relationship, her husband maintained an affair with another woman, one that had begun even before their wedding. She occasionally came across letters between him and his mistress, and though she confronted him about the betrayal, he dismissed her concerns. Despite the pain this caused, Cooke remained in the marriage for reasons that may have been both practical and emotional. Feeling isolated and unloved, Cooke herself sought solace outside the confines of her marriage. During a solo trip to New York, she reconnected with a friend from her youth and engaged in an affair. However, the brief respite this provided came with a heavy emotional cost. Consumed by guilt and the pressures of her strained relationship, Cooke turned to unhealthy coping mechanisms. She began drinking more frequently, starting her mornings with beer and progressing to whiskey by midday. Over time, this habit became routine, compounded by her dependency on Valium. Her reliance on alcohol and sedatives left her bedridden for days at a time, further isolating her within the palace walls. As Cooke grappled with her personal struggles, the political situation in Sikkim grew increasingly unstable. Beneath the surface, dissatisfaction with the monarchy was mounting, fueled by calls for democratic reforms. By 1973, protests had erupted across the kingdom, signaling widespread unrest. Sensing her husband's weakening grip on power and the growing discontent within the country, Cooke attempted to involve herself in the political arena, hoping to influence events in her own way. However, her efforts would only complicate an already precarious situation. Cooke's attempt to involve herself in Sikkim's volatile political landscape backfired dramatically, further unraveling both her personal and public life. As a skilled and passionate writer, she published an article that controversially called for the return of Darjeeling, a region formerly part of Sikkim but now under Indian control, to Sikkimese rule. In her argument, she claimed that all territories historically within Sikkim's borders inherently belong to the kingdom's ruler. However, instead of strengthening her position or that of the monarchy, the article only exacerbated the existing tensions. The timing of her publication could not have been worse. By 1975, dissatisfaction with the monarchy had reached a breaking point. Massive protests erupted as thousands of Sikkimese citizens marched on the palace, demanding democratic reforms and an end to royal rule. The growing unrest mirrored the disintegration of her marriage, another cornerstone of her life that was slipping away. For Cooke, it must have seemed as though every foundation she had built during her time in Sikkim was collapsing simultaneously. On April 10, 1975, the Chogyal, Cooke's husband, was officially deposed. The monarchy was abolished, and the Chogyal was placed under house arrest within the palace. Meanwhile, plans for Sikkim's formal annexation into India moved swiftly ahead, culminating in the kingdom becoming an Indian state under direct governance. This political shift marked the end of an era for Sikkim and for Cooke herself. Just a decade earlier, she had made history as the first American-born Queen Consort of Sikkim, a rare and extraordinary title. Now she was marked by another, more somber milestone. She would also be remembered as the kingdom's last queen consort. Cooke's involvement in political matters had done little to help her cause. Her controversial article, while passionate, was criticized as tone-deaf and counterproductive. Many in Sikkim viewed her as an outsider meddling in sensitive political issues, and her actions only deepened suspicions among the local elite. Rumors began to circulate that she was a CIA operative sent to the region, an accusation that further isolated her from both the Sikkimese people and the political class. Any goodwill she might have fostered as queen consort was now overshadowed by these allegations and her perceived missteps. After her husband's fall from power, Cooke quickly made the decision to leave Sikkim. The once celebrated queen fled the country and returned to New York City, taking with her the 4 youngest royal children, her 2 biological children and 2 of her stepchildren. Her departure marked the definitive end of her royal chapter, one that had begun with grandeur and optimism, but concluded with turmoil and exile. Back in New York, Cooke faced the daunting task of rebuilding her life in a world far removed from the Himalayan kingdom where she had once held a crown. After leaving Sikkim, Cooke returned to New York City, where she sought to rebuild her life. Accompanying her were her 2 biological children and 2 of her stepchildren, a testament to her continued sense of responsibility as a mother despite the upheaval. Determined to distance herself from her former royal life, Cooke embraced a simpler existence. She dressed casually, aiming to blend in with the bustling crowds of the city. Within just a few weeks, she managed to establish a comfortable routine, though her new beginning was complicated by the lingering consequences of her renounced U.S. citizenship. When Cooke had given up her American citizenship to demonstrate loyalty to Sikkim, she likely never anticipated the legal and social hurdles it would create upon her return. Her decision to renounce her citizenship had not been forgotten, and certain members of the U.S. House of Representatives voiced objections to granting her full citizenship again. The issue sparked debate, but a compromise was eventually reached. Cooke would be allowed permanent residency if both the House and Senate agreed. This resolution enabled her to remain in the U.S. and focus on carving out a new chapter of her life. 5 years after her husband's deposition in 1980, Cooke's marriage to the Chogyal officially ended in divorce. The dissolution of their union marked the final severance of her ties to the royal family. However, her personal losses did not end there. Just 2 years later, her ex-husband passed away from cancer in New York, where he had also been living after his fall from power. Despite these tragedies, Cooke showed remarkable resilience and determination to move forward. Returning to the city where she had first lived after her parents' deaths, Cooke found a renewed sense of purpose. Drawing on her rich experiences and intellectual interests, she built a successful career as a writer and historian. Her knowledge and passion for history, combined with her personal story, made her a sought-after educator. She taught at Yale University and her alma mater, Sarah Lawrence College, sharing insights from her extraordinary life and the lessons she had learned along the way. Hope Cooke's writing career became an important medium for her to process and share her unique life experiences. In 1980, she published her autobiography, Time Change, which offered a candid and reflective account of her journey from American socialite to Sikkimese queen consort, and ultimately to an independent woman navigating a post-royal life. The book received critical acclaim for its introspective tone and vivid descriptions, offering readers a rare glimpse into both the complexities of her marriage and the political upheaval in Sikkim. Beyond her autobiography, Cooke contributed articles to prominent publications, focusing on cultural history, urban studies, and her personal observations on the intersections of East and West. Her expertise in New York City history became a particular focus in her later years, leading her to publish works exploring the city's evolution and neighborhoods. Through her writing, Cooke found a voice that resonated with audiences seeking stories of resilience, cultural exchange, and identity. Her literary contributions cemented her legacy not only as a historical figure, but also as a thoughtful chronicler of the worlds she straddled. In later years, when asked about her time in Sikkim and the choices she had made during her marriage, Cooke reflected with honesty and self-awareness. She admitted that she had lacked a strong sense of self when she married, which had led her to lose her boundaries in her life abroad. This candid reflection revealed how much she had grown since those tumultuous years. Today, Hope Cooke resides in Brooklyn, continuing her work as a writer, historian, and lecturer. While her royal fairy tale ended in heartbreak, the postscript of her life has become its own kind of storybook ending. Through her intellectual pursuits and personal growth, Cooke has created a fulfilling life that stands as a testament to her resilience and ability to reinvent herself after immense challenges. From the heights of royal grandeur to the quiet streets of Brooklyn, Hope Cooke's journey reminds us that even fairy tales come with shadows. She wasn't just a queen, she was a survivor, a writer, and a bridge between two worlds. Her story is one of resilience and reinvention, proving that it's never too late to rediscover yourself. What do you think of Hope Cooke's incredible life? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of extraordinary lives and historical intrigue. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.